What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Kendall, and thank you so much for checking out this edition of our virtual NBA Draft War Room. Today, we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Clippers. It was a disappointing end to the postseason, Kendall, for the Los Angeles Clippers. They were knocked out by the Denver Nuggets in a 7-game series that ended really bad for them, blowing a 3-1 lead, getting blown out. Really kind of an embarrassing finish to what was a very hopeful season for this franchise, with a lot of people looking at them as the team that may end up taking over Los Angeles for this year as the top team in the West, despite the Lakers, of course, having a formidable roster as well. It did not end the way Steve Ballmer wanted. Doc Rivers, he's out the door. Ty Lue, who was the lead assistant, is now there as the head coach. Chauncey Billups also joined that staff, so we've already seen shakeup in the coaching staff. Is expected, Kendall, that shakeup could be coming to the roster as well. But obviously, with only pick number 57, not sure how much of a huge impact you could make in this draft.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure a lot of Clippers fans have been locked in on this draft cycle. 57. Of course, you can always get a great player at 57. Uh, but but no, yeah. I mean, look, this was a disappointing end to the postseason for the Clippers. It was even more disappointing when the Lakers then subsequently won the championship. Um, and so, look, they have to hit the drawing board. We'll see what happens with the roster, but I mean, obviously this whole offseason will be kind of in flux for the Clippers. But, I think draft night really starts their offseason because moves can be made on draft night that can either acquire extra picks or, maybe acquire another star player. I don't know. But, we'll break down all that right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Clippers heading into this offseason. So Los Angeles finished with a 49-23 record that was good for having the second record in the West, but it did not matter when it came to the postseason. They were again eliminated by the Denver Nuggets in 7 games in the Western Conference semifinals. They had owned pick number 57, and that is it. They traded their first round pick for Marcus Morris, who we'll get to in a second, is a free agent. Team needs better point guard play was the first thing I put. This is a very good roster, so it wasn't like it was kind of hard to pick apart what you may think you need to improve this roster. This is a roster people thought could win a championship, but became very clear, I thought, that the point guard play was an issue. Patrick Beverly, below average offensive player at best. Lou Williams, below average defender at best, and not really much of a floor general. So that hurt them when they went up against a guard in Jamal Murray who was playing elite and was playing at an elite level. They had no answer for him on either side of the ball, and that's why they got sent home. So point guard play is a huge issue for them. And I added stretch big potential or stretch big ability. That's something that they need. I know Jermichael Green as a player option, and Patrick Patterson, who did not necessarily play all that great for them, but he is a stretch big with some shooting ability. Those guys may not be there next year, and Harold also being gone, they need depth really at the 5 spot just overall. But to me, when Green was shooting the ball well, and when Patterson shot the ball well, it added a different dimension to this Clipper team that made them very difficult to guard. I think that besides Zubac, who's more of your traditional big man, they need to get another guy in there who can stretch out the defense more. So I think stretch big is something that they could definitely help their offense this year. Free agents, Marcus Morris, as I mentioned, traded by the New York Knicks to the Clippers. Now he enters free agency. They don't have a first round pick because they traded for Marcus Morris. Jermichael Green, as I said, is a player option. Montrezl Harrell is a free agent along with Patrick Patterson. Reggie Jackson. Joe Noah is basically a team option there. His contract is not guaranteed for next season. Jonathan Motley and Amir Coffey are on 2-way deals. Kendall, what are you looking at in terms of targets, in terms of trade options? What do you think the Clippers should do heading to this offseason?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the Clippers obviously are in an interesting spot because there's a lot that they can do. There's a lot of different places they can go because I mean, like you said, 57. It's not really where you want to be in this draft because, like you said, while they don't have a lot of holes, they have areas of improvement. And I think when you're looking at a team that gets bounced in the second round, you definitely look at um, maybe possibly trying to trade into the first round. And I think trading to the first round in this draft is not going to be incredibly difficult. I think there are going to be teams in that middle to late first round that are be looking to add, an extra player, an extra piece. Teams that feel like they may be one or two pieces away from being, maybe a playoff team, or teams that feel like they're one or two pieces away from being contenders, may look at a guy like Lou Williams and say, can Lou Williams be the difference between us making the playoffs or not? Or more importantly, I think, can he be the difference between us being, a first round exit and maybe a team that can make a run in the postseason? So, I would see if I can get into the late first round, I think that is something I would consider. If you can get into the late first round, I think that you have to look at. To me, I think you have to look at the guard play. I know you mentioned that the guard play for the Clippers was shoddy at times. Reggie Jackson was erratic. He had moments where he was really good, but he had moments where he struggled. And so for me, when I look at the guard play in the late first round, the first guy I think about is a guy I mentioned with the Milwaukee Bucks, which is Theo, a point guard that out of France who can. Honestly, I think he's being a little undervalued, and I think could play for any team in the league, possibly from day one. I think he's going to be one of the more ready-made point guards in this draft, considering he's had the EuroLeague experience. He's played well in the EuroLeague. He plays for Tony Parker's team in France, and I think Parker has kind of been a little bit of a mentor for Maledon, and you see it in his game. He has a little bit of a George Hill, Tony Parker-ish kind of game, and I think that is something that should be intriguing for the Clippers. But another point guard I would target if I was the Clippers is a West Coast guy from Arizona, which I guess isn't on the West Coast, but it's close enough to the West Coast. Nico Mannion, kid, like I said, from Arizona, who I think fits the Clippers' profile in terms of their need at a guy who can make plays and kind of be a floor general. Isn't gonna be a takeover kind of point guard. Isn't gonna be a guy that's going to, carry a team or carry even a unit on his back. But I think he's a guy that can, get the ball to Kawhi, get the ball to PG in spots where they can be successful. Something I don't think they had this year. And I think we saw at times their offense was a little awkward. And I think in the second round, I think you can certainly find bigs late in the first round. Or late in the second round, rather. I think about Udoka Azubuike, who's a big that I think could help the Clippers as well, in terms of giving them more size to deal with what the Lakers are going to obviously be throwing at them.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Theo Maledon pick there. I could definitely, if they want to really jump up and they want to take a guard who could make a difference for them. Maledon makes a lot of sense. I think that, again, floor general, I thought was something that they had an issue with. They didn't get their guys the balls in good spots when it came to George and Leonard when they were struggling. Sometimes you need a guard who can call up the right play or make the right pass or just know to find a way to get one of those guys in the easy basket to get them going. They were unable to do that in key spots. So Maledon, I think, is a good fit. I also would throw out Cassius Winston from Michigan State. As someone I think would be a good fit if you're able to sneak in back into the first round and you're able to maybe trade someone like Lou Williams to get there. If we're talking about, though, at the end of the day, they do have number 57 and they may stay there. And if that is the case, you got to start looking at, what guys are you looking at? I wrote off two guys who I think would be interesting for them. Paul Reed from DePaul, I think is underrated in this draft. He reminds me a lot of Hakeem Warwick. Rangy, long, very athletic, great shot blocker, aggressive. He's a fighter. When you look drafting in the second round, I want a fighter. I don't want a guy who's soft. I don't want a guy who, I want a guy who I think that he's going to be fighting like hell to stay in the league. Reed strikes me as that kind of guy.
John Hollinger, he's with the Athletic now. He used to obviously work for ESPN and the Memphis Grizzlies. He raised a question a couple months ago about who's better, Paul Reed or Precious Achiuwa. And obviously in a vacuum you think Precious Achiuwa, but he made the case there might be the same player, but one guy's value is going to be particularly higher. And the guy you described sounds like Preston Achua, but
Yeah,
it also
exactly.
describes Paul Reed. So obviously I
And
love Preston.
if you watch the tape, it's not that far off. I mean,
Right,
Achua is more naturally gifted as a dribbler, ball handler, shooter.
right.
He's a better player,
He
but
grew up playing on the wing, so he's gonna have some of those skills.
right, he's a better player than Reed. But to me, what they could functionally bring to a team is more or less the same.
Right.
Achua has way more upside. He could probably do a little bit more, but there's a lot of things that Achua brings that Reed could do, especially defensively. He could do everything. He's very quick. He can guard multiple positions. And again, he's a great shot blocker. I think that he would be potentially, if Harrell leaves, Reed maybe not day one, but could he develop into? They're different kind of players. Harrell's a little more like burly. Reed's kind of a little slender, but similar. I think roles on the Clippers. I think Reed could end up being a steal, and I don't know where he's gonna go in the second round. Second round guys are so hard because some mock drafts have them early. Some guys have them late.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen Reed kind of in the middle, so that to me tells me it could be one way or the other. He could be very high or it could be very low.
We've seen plenty of guys that were projected to go early first round that don't get drafted.
And to me, I think the reason why I usually tend to go lower on guys who are kind of solid second round is because a lot of these mock drafts are not accounting for all the stash guys. There's so many players that come in that are not on anybody's board or anybody's mock draft.
Svedasvili gets drafted in the
right, and like nobody knows who this guy is. He's playing in some YMCA league, and
we're gonna Borat get drafted. Pick 58. We're gonna be like, oh wait, all right.
Right. So even though a guy like Reed you may see somewhere in the 40s, I think in most mock drafts, there may be 10 guys that get drafted as stash guys that may get drafted ahead of him. So that's why at 57, I don't think it's crazy that he may still be there, even though I think he's a good player. One other guy I think late, who I think is definitely more late first round, second round. I don't think he'll be high, but is a player I think we need to keep an eye on. I think we need to keep an eye on Miles Powell. One, if you lose Lou Williams, I think this is your Lou Williams kind of player.
Yes.
Not very efficient, obviously as a scorer, but the one thing I will say is sometimes you gotta take this with a grain of salt, but I always pay attention when other NBA players think a guy is really good, even if I'm not 100% sure. When other guys say, "Yo, this guy is really good," sometimes they end up really working because at the end of the day, those guys go up against guys who can play. And I don't know how many NBA guys I've seen talk about how great Miles Powell is, or NBA trainers. Chris Brinkley is very close to Miles Powell, talking about this guy is an NBA player. I don't know why these teams don't want him or like him. The kid is tough. He's unafraid to take any kind of shot. He is in the gym range.
Yeah.
And
strong.
Yeah, he's very strong, even though he's only 6'2". I know. He's a 6'2" shooting guard. He is not a point guard, but the guy can fill it up, and I think he strikes me as the kind of player that could this guy be a much better, more efficient scorer in the NBA than in college. I could see that being the case. The efficiency is a huge issue, but the talent and the skill is there. When I see skill and talent, I say, okay, maybe I can coach some of the issues we have with shot selection, things like that. And so if they're really at 57, that's the only pick they have. And if they really want to send Lou Williams out the door, I say look out for Miles Powell.
Another guy, real quick, that I look at 57, I do like the Miles Powell pick. He doesn't help any of the.
Yeah, your defensive issues, or your chemistry issues, all that stuff, not help with this. But the guy can score.
Yeah, it's still gonna be a very chaotic offense out there. But if they do want to add a floor general, and you don't have a first round pick, obviously. A guy I mentioned in our Lakers video that I didn't have going to the Lakers, but I mentioned Ashton Hagans, who I think is, might be the second best perimeter defender in this draft behind Trey Jones. Ashton Hagans at Kentucky, obviously a lot of his biggest issues were upstairs. A lot of it was, he had, him and Calipari didn't always see eye to eye. Sometimes he was into the game, sometimes he wasn't. But when he was into the game, defensively, the guy is an absolute pit bull. Good luck trying to score on Ashton Hagans. He has a physical profile that actually allows him to project better than maybe even Trey Jones at the NBA level because he's bigger and stronger. taller and stronger. So, I think Ashton Hagens, if you keep Patrick Beverly, he's a guy that can kind of, be brought along by Patrick Beverly, which could be good for Ashton Hagens. But whatever happens with Patrick Beverly, maybe if he's not there next year, you have a guy that could replace Pat Beverly. So, and give you that same option. But look, Ashton Hagens can't shoot. He can't hit the ocean standing on the shore. But obviously he can defend, and that's gonna be the thing that keeps him in the NBA potentially. But I think he's a guy that could be available. It certainly can be available at picks 57.
Yeah.
If all the kind of off the court stuff and all the if you feel comfortable drafting Ashton Hagen from a character perspective, then I think his talent could warrant him being a good fit on the Clippers.
And the last thing too, I'll say about drafting at 57 is also when you're looking at what you're doing in the second round, I think most second round teams can kind of get to anywhere they want in the second round past like 40. Like the picks in the 30s, you're gonna have to give up something. But after that, I mean, you could buy a pick wherever if you really want a guy. So with any of these players we're mentioning, again, a player like Paul Reed who maybe goes up a little higher than 57, I would say, hey man, if they really you can get him and they really see a spot that makes sense and the price tag isn't too much, I say go for it. I think he's a really good player.
You were a big Kabengele guy.
I was, and honestly, I did think about Kabengele too in this mix. Again, if you draft in the second round, I don't think you're really worried too much about who you have per se. I think you're trying to.
That they're missing.
He is. I agree. I think that a lot of the things I talked about, stretchability, athleticism, those things are like what he could potentially bring. And I think that I haven't sold my stock on him. When the rumors first emerged that the Knicks were going to get him in that Marcus Morris deal, I was ecstatic. I was like, whoa, Scott Perry pulled off a coup. And then sure enough, it was not. But we still got the first round pick, which is fine. But yeah, I'm not done on Kabengele. I think that he can be a lot of things you want, but he got no time his rookie year, so I can't assume he's gonna be able to do anything. So if you're still trying to find that player, Paul Reed, I think is he's next man up. Is that kind of guy that they need, playing on the inside. So, what do you guys think the Clippers should do with their picks? What do you think that they should do with the draft? Do you think they should do something bold and try to trade into the first round? Do they use Lou Williams? Did they use Paul George to get into the lottery? We didn't even talk about that, but is that something that comes up somehow? Or do they use Paul George to trade for some other reason on draft night? Leave your comments in the comments section if you enjoyed this conversation and let us know what you think they should do. Also, if you did enjoy this conversation, make sure you like this this video and subscribe to our channel, New Generation Media, where we'll have plenty more of these virtual NBA Draft War Room sessions for the Western Conference. That'll do it for now. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.